Hey minions, welcome to Crank It Up. I'm Jim Price, and on this episode of Action Awareness, I want to talk about Tech Center of the Robots. Specifically, the second copy, not the first. I asked the Facebook community which one they preferred to see, and I will not be doing a video for the other one. So sorry to everyone who voted for Tech Center number 1, I was really pulling for you, but the people have spoken, and unfortunately, I don't have time to do both, so here's Tech Center, but specifically the second copy. The robots have a staggering 18 minions compared to 2 actions. As minions are the primary source of power, this makes them almost always competitive. But actions are half of your turn, and the ability to waste half of your turn can end up hurting robots in the long run. So we need to maximize this action in a game where efficiency is everything, so we'll be looking at 3 different scenarios for using Tech Center. For the ability itself, Tech Center has you draw a card for each minion you control on a base of your choice. This is fantastic, as card draw is extremely important. For the robots, it gives you more options to play, and for a faction that change their plays together, they derive much of their value by having as many options as possible, particularly when you are chaining Zapbots together. Now, I always hesitate to make a video like this because I need to talk about a little-known rule that, as of April 2019, is still in the rulebook. It's a clause of the immediate rule, and it directly relates to Tech Center as well as a few other robot cards. It's the second bullet of the immediate rule, which states that extra plays must be immediate if another part of the ability follows the extra play. Now, I try to keep this channel as family-friendly as possible, so make sure children aren't around for what I'm about to say, because there's only one word to describe that rule, and forgive me for my word choice. It's cray-cray. Absolutely cray-cray. There, I said it. I hate this rule with respect to robots and a few other cards. Look at Microbot Fixer and Reclaimer. They give you extra plays, but they have another part of the ability that follows. An ability that is in no way contingent on the extra play. In fact, it really hurts the Microbot Reclaimer because it means that if you play a Hoverbot, you cannot first shuffle in your better Microbots. It also has implications for Tech Center because it means that you cannot use Tech Center to get a better minion for you to use for your extra play. There are examples where this rule makes sense, but this is not one of them. My group actually refuses to play this way on principle because we are convinced that it is a mistake, and I'm sharing that as the player who never really plays robots, but always has them played against me. We actually tried to do this one time, and it was a nightmare, and it really hurt the fun of the faction. I'm okay giving them their advantage back, because this severely hurts them in a way that doesn't make sense. Normally, I am strictly against house ruling anything, but robots were played this way forever, and I have a hard time justifying this at all. I've said in a previous video that the simpler solution is to take the 1 or 2 cards where this matters and actually clarify them that the extra play is immediate. Besides, if you look in the rulebook, Time Walk gets an exception, one that is admittedly limited for legalistic and thematic reasons, but my point is that there are occasions where common sense prevails, and this has to be one of them. So I'm arranging the video built on the idea that the extra play is not immediate, because again, that's cray-cray, and I'd love to debate anyone on the subject. Still, I am legally required to tell you that this is my personal opinion, and that your group needs its own consensus, even though I would, and have, used my personal interpretation in a formal competitive setting, even when it is not in my favor to do so, because I'm not going to be selectively legalistic based on whether something benefits me or not. End of rant. Back to Tech Center. There are 3 key moments to use Tech Center, which will all be explored in this video. They are before, during, and after your burst. To assess which is best, which admittedly is highly situational, you need to look at the value that Tech Center provides. Tech Center should not be played to draw 1 card unless you are absolutely certain it will win you the game. A card whose sole play is to draw another card is a waste of an action. In fact, I don't even like Mystic Studies because it only nets me 1 actual card and it's not worth the action. So I wouldn't use Tech Center to draw 2 cards either. I am a fan of Tribute, however. Admittedly, it is not the greatest card in the world, it's just a tribute, but the idea of drawing 3 cards is definitely worth it. But Tech Center has a chance to draw a lot more, depending on when you use it. Let's start with the case for after your burst, since a burst means more minions, and more minions means more cards. This is a great way to regenerate your hand after playing numerous minions. It's not uncommon to play 6 or more in a single turn without even touching a Hoverbot, and with a max hand size of 10, you can quickly draw back up. The problem with this is that you may end up drawing past your limit, which will be further increased at the end of your turn, meaning a sizable discard is coming. There are advantages to this, as it helps you cycle through your deck faster and functions like a non-microbot shuffle when you exhaust it. The robots also have a few throwaway cards that I find overly situational, but you may also find yourself being forced to discard several good cards. Additionally, I would only do this if my action was not needed to break the base, as I just added a ton of minions, which is a ton of power creep. Or one wrong action away for losing all of that. So if you can drop many minions onto a base that will break, using your regular action to regroup for the next burst, that is worthwhile. But the other problem is, it generally takes your better minions to get out that many minions on the base. So what are you drawing? Yes, you will cycle through your deck faster, but you aren't necessarily balancing your turns, trading one very good turn for a few successive bad ones. Let's look at the case for before your burst. Bursts need to be successful. Having as many options as possible ensures that, particularly because you may want to wait for better options. To fail to break a base creates power creep that your opponents will utilize, and that really works against the robots. They excel at breaking bases solo, or going from 0 to edging out their opponents, and I don't believe that they could always survive constantly overpaying on bases, even with their higher quantities, not without help from their partner. So you could use Tech Center before your burst to make your turn more deterministic, and for the case of before, I would count using it after your Microbot Reclaimer as before your burst. Because you are only adding the slightest bit of power, if you decide not to proceed, you aren't contributing to that much power creep. Then again, this comes with its own problems. First, you naturally wouldn't be drawing that many cards, because if you have a ton of minions at the start of your turn, that base probably should have been broken for an efficient second place on a previous turn, so the output is lower. But if the output was higher, that means that you have a ton of cards, but you won't necessarily be playing them, leading to a discard later in the turn. But the difference here is that, if you aren't playing many cards, your cards are probably worse, and you are less likely to discard good ones. Finally, there is the case for discarding during the burst. The best way to think about this is mid-Zapbot. It's fairly common that you will want to use Zapbots to increase your minion count to draw more cards, hoping to draw more cards and therefore more Zapbots to continue the chain. Alternatively, taking a chance that after 4 Zapbots you drew that coveted Microbot Alpha to finish off a base is a risk sometimes worth taking. Admittedly, this is very risky for the reasons I just mentioned, but one of the problems with Tech Center is that it pushes you to consolidate on a single base when the robots can break multiple in a turn, definitely 2 with ease. For me, my preferred play is to use this at the last possible moment before my final play in case I need the Alpha to drop on a specific base. I still have that chance to play one more minion on another base since it isn't needed on the current base, and if I get an Alpha, I might get 2 if I break the bases in the proper order. But sometimes I will take a chance based on my deck size to keep the chain going if I feel that the power creep is okay. If I don't get the cards I want, maybe a Microbot Guard is enough of a stall tactic to keep the power low. I don't always do this, but a calculated risk is necessary, particularly if I've already locked in second place and have a chance to overtake for an efficient first. I will definitely consider doing a Tech Center mid-burst if it gives me a chance to get an insane number of points from Factory 436-1337, because competing on other bases may not matter after that. One thing that is consistent is that I almost draw at least 3 cards with this card, unless I'm really starving for the play. It's too easy to facilitate a rather good draw, and while there are valid reasons for doing it before, during, and after a burst, Tech Center is too good to waste for a mediocre result. Each playstyle has its own reason for when to use this card, and there is risk at each moment. I personally favor during, then before, then after, but you may have a different preference. Let me know yours in the comments. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let's shut it down.